All right, it's 10:33. I think we ought to go ahead and get started. Other people might join. So I'm going to kick right in. Good morning, everyone. My name's Michael Furbish. I'm the moderator for today's panel called Businesses Go Green at the Nature City Forum 2021. I'm going to introduce three speakers who will take 5 or 10 minutes and give their presentation, and then I believe what would be in the best interest for everybody is just to have some open dialogue, and we'll monitor the chat and take questions and have a conversation. Two of our panelists are here, and we're trying to find the third one and get James in, but let me do a brief introduction now, and then we'll sort of go in a sequence. With us this morning is Alex Obrecht, the founder of Race Pace Bicycles, founded in 1978. Alex, we don't know each other that well, but my understanding is you're a Baltimore guy and went to Towson University and started a Baltimore business, and you've been running it ever since. And it's, to me, that's a pretty remarkable story. And I'm really
go ahead. That is the story. You're correct, Michael.
So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more from you. And then our second panelist will be Ali Dysart. Ali, we didn't get a chance to talk much beforehand, but it's really a pleasure to meet you because I love Mom's Organic Market. Ali works for Mom's Organic Garden, and her role is the Environment and Partnership Manager, which I just think what you guys do is really cool. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And our third panelist is James Boycourt, who is at the time, it was co-founder of Charm City Meadworks. I think he's the predominant owner now. And I think he's having technical issues trying to get patched in here. So as we get into our session, maybe we'll see him pop up. So just as a little bit of an introduction before I turn it over to you, Alex, my understanding is sort of our topic today is a conversation between three businesses. You know, what you guys are doing in your businesses to protect the environment, how you're engaging community. To me, that's an interesting conversation because sustainability doesn't only have to be the environment. It can also have a lot to do with community, employees, people's well-being. And Ali, I see on Mom's website, there's a really big focus on employee well-being and mindfulness. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that if that happens to be part of your presentation. But anyway, that's a very quick introduction. And I think the best thing we can do is just jump right into this. I'm going to turn it over to you, Alex. I think you said you'd take 7 or 8 minutes. The floor is yours, and we'll just step back and listen for a minute.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Morning, everyone. I'm Alex Obrecht. I own Race Pace Bicycles. I have for 43 years, like Michael said, since I graduated from Towson University. We have about a little over 100 employees, and some small business people out there might think, well, that's not really a small business, but I will say that when I started in the front 2 rooms of a row house in West Baltimore in 1978, it was in fact quite a small business. The first thing I want to say about the bicycle business, which is unique, is that the bicycle is inherently green. It is the most efficient method of transportation that's ever been developed. If one takes the caloric content in a gallon of gas, you could travel approximately 3,000 miles of calories expended on a bicycle. So we are a green business, just the nature of being in the bicycle business. I want to speak a couple minutes first on the idea of policy and the processes we put in place, and not so much the idea of the actual practice. I thought it'd be interesting to think about for me to present to you the things I think about as I go forward with running a sustainable green business. Of course, the most important thing, and the first thing I'll mention, is the fact that either the business or the business owner or the senior management group must, in fact, be committed to running a environmentally sensitive business and a green business. The second thing I wanted to mention is resource utilization. There's an interesting idea, and it's the fact that if there is a choice to be made, that you have 2 different green actions that you could put into place, which one would in fact be the better option? And what I want to mention, maybe an example would be a restaurant owner, let's say a small business restaurant owner that needs a new heating, ventilation, air conditioning unit. And in fact, his dollars might be best spent to buy a more efficient unit, but it's not something that the public would ever see. So perhaps he spends the dollars that he has available to buy a greener takeout container so that the public will see it every time they take out food from his restaurant. And that's a matter of the resources we have and the resources we can expend as small business owners. The last thing that really affects everything we do in our business every time we make a major improvement is the fact that our local, state, and federal governments have plenty of mandates in place that in fact do dictate green practices, and they've been in place for many years. So when I do a major renovation at one of my stores, I have to keep in mind all these policies that are already in place that I will follow. And they include basic stuff like how much insulation to put in the walls and how much insulation, stormwater management to keep the health of our waters, and even the plantings that we'll put on a property are dictated by local jurisdictions. What's interesting to consider is the fact that many of these regulations have been put into place for decades now, and we don't even think about them anymore when we make these decisions. An example would be if I buy a new van for my vehicle, buy a new van for my business, I would be buying a van today that's twice as efficient as something I would have bought 15 years ago, just because of a government mandate that was put in place in the past. And we accept these things, and they are good for our environment, and they're green choices that we make. Ultimately, one's commitment to the community to operate in a sustainable manner will rest with the owner of the business. One single factor limits the extent of carrying out this commitment, and that is, in fact, the resources that are available. Small businesses are run by individuals and management teams that must make choices every day on how to best utilize these resources. And those are the time we spend, the effort required, and the money we would spend on a green improvement or a green choice that we make. I'm quite certain that many small business owners strive to run green businesses, as we do at Raised Pace Bicycles, but the greenest choice is often the costliest choice. And when the green choice becomes price neutral, we will live in a community with a far healthier environment. As a business owner, whenever possible, I must consider costlier alternatives for a sustainable and healthy community. I'll give a quick story here, an example of this. 20 years ago, we were doing a major renovation in one of our bigger stores, which included repainting the whole store. I went to the painting contractor and told him I wanted to use a product that he wasn't familiar with, which was a paint that was low in volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. He didn't respond to me. We went to the general contractor, and general contractor let me know that the painting contractor didn't want to use that product because he wasn't familiar with it. I insisted on it. They let me know it would be twice as expensive as a standard product. Additionally, they would not guarantee the result. However, the important thing here is that since then, the use of paints with low VOCs or no VOCs has become a standard. And every time we paint a property that we own or have painted in the last 20 years, it has been with a product like this, and it's now much more commonly available. The important thing here in that lesson is that members of a community with available resources must consider committing to costlier, greener alternatives. Those individuals and businesses drive green practices mainstream, often lowering the cost of the product, making the choice easier for all and healthier for everyone in the community. A perfect example of that is the use of solar. And what I'll say is a little personal story that's going on right now in our business. Solar system that are rooftop mounted are now substantially less expensive and more accessible to a larger number of businesses and in home users. And we recognize this, and Raised Pace Bicycles has and will take advantage of solar, and we will have solar installed on our 2 buildings that we own in Ellicott City and Westminster in the next several months. It's important to remember when we make decisions like this, which are substantial monetary outlays, the idea of resource allocation, what we can do with the resources available to a small business. And this pick of moving solar into our forefront of what we're doing is a use of our available resources. I'm going to change gears a little bit here and talk just quickly on advocacy. Race Pace Bicycles and myself personally involved on the advocacy side of cycling. I'm in Annapolis often, although not often the last year, and on Capitol Hill every year or two, talking to our elected officials about safe, efficient, pleasant places to ride, and these are critical to our community. I think it's important. We often send out reminders to our customer base that we would like you to contact elected officials regarding issues such as these, and I would encourage you to do so. Our community needs and deserves the expenditures of our tax dollars on cycling infrastructure. Supporting local and regional initiatives and to be as involved as you can be to move these resources into a safer, better place to ride should be at the very forefront of a green, sustainable future. Thank you very much, Michael. And I look forward to a question and answer period and welcome anybody that would have any questions to ask me about operating Race Pace bicycles.
Well, thank you, Alex. You've juggled a lot of stuff getting these stores up, fitted out, renovated. That was an angle that I wasn't really expecting. I'm going to watch the chat and the Q&A, and we'll come. I think what we'll try to do is get to Q&A for all the panelists at one time. So stand by. Allie, sure. I want to introduce you. We don't know each other very well, but I think some of your background is mostly Pacific Northwest, if I understand correctly, and you've been here with Moms for a while. And I'm going to turn it over to you. I think working at Moms in the area that you work in, there are all sorts of spokes on the wheel that you could be talking about. But anyway, you can you take it where you want to go.
Yeah.
Stage is yours.
Yep. So I, lived out on the Pacific Northwest. So it was kind of, it was really nice. I was able to get a very broad spectrum of what they're doing out there, and then moved over to this coast and started working for Moms about six years ago. I think I celebrate my anniversary with Moms this July. And I actually have a presentation. So Melvin, if you can share the screen. Okay, so that's our logo. So you can go to the next slide. So those who are not familiar with us, Moms is a Mid-Atlantic based organic grocer. We have 21 stores. We're in 5 states and DC. We have about 1,400 staff members, and we've been in operation for about 33 years. Our company purpose is to protect and restore the environment. So that's kind of the lens that we look at when we're vetting vendors or partners or organizations that we want to work with. Next slide. One of the first ways, and probably the biggest one that we do, is that we are an all organic produce department. We don't sell conventionally chemically grown produce. You don't have to check labels and logos. This is all we have. We have organic produce. And why that's great for the environment and as a business, the USDA organic seal doesn't allow some of the worst offenders for the environment as far as pesticides go. So you won't see neonics, you won't see glyphosate, you won't see chlorpyrifos as an additive or fertilizer or pesticide with any of the produce that we carry. These are also, like Alex was talking about, a lot of the bills that we will go to Annapolis and lobby against the local use of those same pesticides. So I think that it's very important that if we're going to lobby against those pesticides, we don't have them in our store either. Next slide. So bulk offerings, zero waste lifestyle, plastic waste lifestyle. These are kind of buzzwords that I'm sure a lot of you guys have been hearing lately. At Moms, we have 9 different bulk sets throughout the store: coffee, tea, grains, rice, honey, vinegar, you name it. We probably find it for you packaged free. There's a no barrier for entry, so any customer can come into the store with any jar from home and fill up what they'd like there. We'll help you with the tear weight and get you started in this. This is great because then it really minimizes the amount of waste that you're generating if that's something that's very important to you and your lifestyle. Next slide. So locally, this is a really cool, unique program. We get, a lot of accolades for this one. This is a CSA partnership. So we work with local organically practicing farms, maybe small, as in the case of like Real Food Farm and Civic Works. It's a smaller farm. It's not certified organic, but we'll host their CSA shares, so their community sustained agriculture shares each summer. This helps them grow as a farm. While maybe they're just getting their footing and they're not certified yet. We can't sell it on our shelves, but we'll host them so their customers can come through and pick up their farm boxes. And that's something really cool. If you haven't heard about CSA partnerships, it's wonderful. I'll leave it at that. Next slide. So another way that we support local environmentalism and stewardship is through our campaigns. So this is a photo of our denim drive box. So each year for 1 month, we host a denim drive where customers are invited to bring in their denim from home. We take this denim, we ship it to Arizona where it's recycled by Blue Jeans Go Green. It's upcycled into insulation that's then used in homes built through Habitat for Humanity. So, we're keeping this waste out of the landfill. We're finding a new home for it. We're helping our customers kind of do that connection because that's, you need a large amount of this waste to then be able to recycle. You can't just send one pair of denim. And I think it's about like 500 pairs will insulate an entire home. Through this drive that we host annually, we get about 10,000 pairs of denim from the local community. So that's about like 20 houses or something. Okay, next slide. Save the Dandelions. So every year around spring, usually around the solstice, we host Save the Dandelions. This is an organic lawn care campaign. We talk about the importance of pollinators, gardening for wildlife, planting for pollinators, how important it is to not spray pesticides, and how residents of the community really do have a big impact on the watershed and the health of the watershed. We'll partner with beekeepers, local beekeepers, the Maryland Pesticide Education Network, the Oyster Recovery Partnership, a bunch of different organizations that all have stake in the game of keeping the bay healthy. And this is one way. So we're talking about, maybe using vinegar to get rid of instead of some toxic pesticide, and kind of the detrimental effects that happen when you do start using this, and how you can have the exact same outcome using organic products. Next slide. We Love Inflation. This is a really quirky one. The owner, Scott Nash of Moms, absolutely loves this one. So for every 10-degree drop in temperature, your tires will drop 1 to 2 pounds in pressure, which means that you're not driving at your optimal fuel efficiency if your tires are underinflated. So when it starts to get cold, usually in December, it's go time. We pull out our tire inflators. Every store has one, and we get to work offering customers, hey, do you want to have your tires inflated? And it's just a really fun campaign called We Love Inflation. All right, next slide. So how do we do it? So we could not do any of this without all of our amazing staff. And a portion of those staff are our ER captains. So ER stands for Environmental Restoration Captains. It's about 1 to 4 staff members at each store. This is the team from Rockville. They made matching ER capes, very cute. And they're standing outside of our recycling center. And they were taking that day to talk to customers that came in, how to use the recycling center, what's compostable, where does the waste go once we collect it, anything environmental that a customer might have. The ER captains are the green team of the store that can help answer those questions. Next slide. Field trips. So during a non-COVID year, we probably go on about 1 field trip per month, and they're going to be around organic farming. Maybe we visit the incinerator in Baltimore, a material recycling facility owned by Rockville or the state. Or this is us at the Oyster Recovery Partnership site out in, I think, Hatcher Point, Horn Point. And we're actually standing on a bunch of recycled and collected oyster shells from Maryland businesses who were participating in the Oyster Recovery Partnership program, where they take the oysters, they grow the spat back on, they stick them back out into the bay. So our staff here, we were all learning about this It's a great way to get the staff out of the stores, get them to really like understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, get them excited about it. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Volunteering. So each store has to volunteer 1 time per quarter, so 4 times a year. Staff will go out. I think this is our Timonium store volunteering with Blue Water Baltimore, maybe like a week ago. They were cleaning up litter. A lot of times the volunteering will be litter cleanup, invasive removal, tree plantings. It's a great way to get out into the community, get the staff involved in walking the walk, and it's really good for team building. Next slide. So trainings, so we have a number of different trainings. We have environmental movie nights, and we'll show the movie and then have like a little quiz afterwards. This is for staff. We have recycling training modules, so you can learn how to use all those recycling centers in all of our stores. Since the pandemic, we started offering virtual field trips. So our wonderful partners will film themselves going on a field trip that maybe we would have taken staff on. We can show the staff the film. It's nice because they can take it at any time. They don't have to, go on the actual field trip if they can, if it's a few hours away or whatever. But this is something that we've been offering. And then they've actually gotten really popular. So staff are actually watching them with their children and getting their children involved, which is really cute. We also have environmental book clubs. We have mindfulness and meditation sessions like he was saying earlier. The trainings are really, really in-depth at Moms, which is really nice. Okay, next slide. Advocacy. So like Alex was saying, we couldn't do, there's probably actually some people in this room in this photo. This was outside of Baltimore City Hall for, I believe, a plastic bag ban. It could have been a foam ban. So we do a lot of advocacy. We're in Annapolis a lot. We're in Baltimore City a lot, testifying, lobbying, rallying. We also invite our partners to come into our stores. Like there was, I think, a neonics bill last year. So we had beekeepers at our stores talking to our customers about the bill that was going on and who they needed to call and how to get involved and that kind of thing. So we're very engaged in advocacy, and we like to kind of be a liaison and like a brick and mortar to make sure our customers are informed. We have social media, we have Facebook, we have those kinds of things where we'll also promote a lot of our advocacy to our customers, because the more of us that are calling our legislators and demanding environmental change and stewardship, the better. Next slide. And that's it. That's my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Allie. That's pretty cool. You covered a lot of ground. James, good morning. I'm glad you found your way in to join us. I'm going to turn it over to you. I introduced you in your absence as the founder in 2014 of Charm City Meadworks. And I'm going to just let you run with it. You've got about 10 minutes, and then we're going to go to Q&A. Sound okay?
Thanks for hanging in there, everyone, with our troubleshooting.
Yeah. We could just go to a few Q&As and then wait to see if James pops up.
That sounds like a great idea, Michael.
Okay.
Start with the Q&As for Alex and Allie, and we'll try our best to support James on this end. Yeah.
Mala, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, wrote in with a couple of questions very early on. And I think we can focus this question to both parties. Do any of your businesses advocate for green labor? That is against awful cobalt or other mining practices for solar cells and electric batteries. I'm not exactly sure how the tail end of that question relates to the front end. But to either of you, Allie or Alex, how do you guys relate to green labor?
I would have to say that I'm going to have to do a little more reading on it in terms of specific, what you mentioned about cobalt mining and the use in solar panels. The concept of green labor, I guess, is pretty broad. So I'll have to step back and suggest that we do our best to make sure that those resources that we use in our business are resources that we would respect the laborers that produced them. Mm-hmm. But as far as cobalt and solar panels, that's something I'm going to need to research a little bit.
Yeah, I can say I haven't seen a bill come across my desk for support on that. Green labor is such a broad topic, so we definitely support green jobs and growing green workforce. But that particular bill on that topic, I haven't seen one for.
Here's a question for you, Allie, from Bonnie. How do the stores and staff pick where they'll do their volunteer activities?
That's a good question. It's usually, if it's a partner in the area, like Timonium, or sorry, let's say Hamden, right? Jones Falls is right down the street. There's so much litter there, unfortunately, and that's what feeds Mr. Trash Wheel and, goes into the Inner Harbor. So they've really fallen in love with that place. So the Baltimore store, the Hamden store, will partner with Blue Water Baltimore on that one. Sometimes it's because I took them on a field trip and they got to know the staff there. Sometimes it's because it's something in their neighborhood or in their community that they are really in love with. So they kind of get the free range. I don't try to control them or be all knowing of that one. Especially some of our stores, we have a store in New York, and so they're the best. They're the local citizens there. So if they know, hey, the Peace Park needs cleaning up, or I've really noticed this, they can get out there and get to work. And it's all paid. It's all paid. So they're volunteering for the organization, but we're paying them.
Cool. Tristan writes in, how do you engage youth who are interested in the green industry or starting to be green entrepreneurs? I'm going to turn that over to both of you, but I'm guessing that has a lot to do with just who applies to work for you.
Yeah. I mean, you can go ahead, Alex.
Well, it does have a lot to do with who applies to work for us. We are by nature, just like Mom's Market, a kind of green business, being in the bicycle business. And we have a lot of people that really do a great job at all of 7 of our locations, who are young people that love bicycling. If you love bicycling, you tend to be green in some aspect of your life. So we encourage young people to come into our business. We have so many long-term employees that started with us when they were 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and have been with us for 10, 20, 30 years. So the encouragement would be, yes, come to work. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I second that. It's, we tend to get a lot of staff that maybe were customers or their parents were customers. They fell in love with the purpose. They see some of the cool stuff that we're doing, and that's when they apply. We also try to partner with organizations that reach out to the youth. So they have volunteer programs for youth in the city or wherever. And then I know that like Maryland League of Conservation Voter, they will award some youth winners at their annual like green events and things like that. So we try to, aid them in like, here's a raffle bag full of zero waste items, or here's something like that to, really encourage them and thank them for being a part of the movement locally.
I'm going to sort of throw my own question at both of you that dovetails with that. I view both of your firms as being very values and principles driven, very big on crafting a culture. I'm thinking of this question because of your comment, Alex. You haven't had a lot of turnover. And I'm guessing for you, Allie, Mom's doesn't have a lot of turnover because my perception is people want more than just a paycheck when they come to a job, and both of your firms have sort of this give me the feel of being committed to the employees' well-being, the culture they work in, that your decisions are value-based. To what degree can each of you comment on longevity of employees and how much culture impacts their wanting to work with you as opposed to only a paycheck?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a lot of where we get our customer or where we get our staff from. We offer a lot of extra perks. We have green benefits. Where we'll help you buy a composter, or I was able to get an electric car, and moms will pay 15% to help me get that electric car. So there's all these green benefits and other things that we give to the staff members, but it's beyond just the paycheck. We have parenting classes. Like I said, we have meditation and mindfulness programs. It really is like, I say that I came to Moms for the Culture. I came to Baltimore and I was like, oh no, like I'm so used to composting and what am I doing? It's so different from Seattle. And then I found Moms and I was like, oh, this is it. Perfect. Okay, got it. Like this is, and I think that a lot of our staff come to Moms as well for that reason.
Do you think it impacts longevity of the employee? Do you guys have low turnover?
I mean, we're still retail, so we still will have a lot of turnover, but we do have, in our central office, we have a lot of people that move up the ranks. So maybe they start as a stalker and now they're working for HR department and we're training them to do another task or something like that. when you have somebody that really cares and they're passionate, I feel like we can train you to do any of the jobs that we have within reason. And so we do see a lot of people moving up and moving into other positions, but they came for a different job originally.
I'm gonna let
Michael, I'll
Alex.
step aside and let you see if we can get James going here.
Okay, thank you, Alex. James, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, and it's good to see you and hear you. Thank you. It's 11:05, and we're going to turn it over to you and give you your picture went out. I hope your audio is still there.
No,
5 or 10 minutes, and you take the floor and tell us about Charm City Meadworks.
I would just say thanks for bearing with me. We had some pretty serious technical trouble with our internet here. I'm the founder of Charm City Meadworks. We're a brewery, and we're located over in Johnston Square, which is east side of Mount Vernon, if you're familiar with Baltimore neighborhoods. And there's a lot of really interesting and progressive development going on over on our side. Major themes is greening. So we've taken an opportunity to really support in any way possible these efforts, whether it be volunteering with cleanups or I'm very involved in the for where
James, let me interrupt you a second. You're breaking up on my side. I'm not hearing your audio, and I'm wondering if you turn off your video, will you get more bandwidth for the audio to come through? And I'm not an IT person, but maybe try that. Or did we lose you altogether?
It looks like we just his connection just dropped, so he'll connect back on. In the meantime, I also hi everyone. I'm Melvin Jadalang. I'm with Baltimore Green Space. I'm one of the part of the planning committee and being on the tech end. I do want to let you folks know there is a poll here too in the tabs. If you folks want to just fill out that poll real quickly, if you tap where you see chat, polls, people, and Q&A, there's a little poll here asking what brings you to this session today. If you folks can just click on that, that would give us some ideas of what brought you here. And then I'll turn it back over to Michael to take other questions while James joins us again.
Cool. Thanks, Melvin. I'm going to come back to you, Alex. We were talking about culture and longevity of employees, and you had mentioned you had low turnover, but I'm going to let you pipe in on, James is back. Every time we go to you, Alex, we get James back.
That's fine.
Right. I'm sorry. Well, Alex, I will say that what you guys with moms is in a very comprehensive way the type of community that I really would Charm City becoming as it continues to grow. We're just not there in terms of timeline yet. I really believe strongly in the kind of direct action that all those separate programs really support. So we're involved in the side education network and other groups that you mentioned. We really have focused in our own native planting in education. We work with there's a our neighborhood association in the neighborhood that we're in, Johnston Square, is very different from what most people would consider a neighborhood organization to be. That they themselves really take direct action with going out and doing plantings, and also getting different community partners in to tackle large, installing pocket parks, and even fundraising for larger parks and that kind of thing. So there's along with a residential and commercial transformation that's going on in our area. We've spent most of our efforts on helping educate, support, and encourage, and donating to that will greening where we are. So without soaking up too much time, you know, that's what we do. Go.
I'm not. Your audio's dropping off, James.
Help propagate that throughout the area so that people have more green space.
You there? Still there, James? You're locked up on my screen. All right. We'll go to plan B again. I'm going to let you, a third try for you, Alex, talking about culture.
You only get the 3 tries, Michael.
Then I'll change the question after that.
Well, the culture of the business is critical. The fact of the matter is that it is a business that people love to work in. If you like bicycles, you like working at a bicycle store. That lends itself to having employees that do stay a long time. Of course, the key there is that you have to make it so that an employee can work for you and make a living wage that makes it possible to stay at that job and not feel like you have to go somewhere else. We've offered 100% employee paid health care for probably 25 years. Every full-time employee can opt to have their health insurance 100% paid. And that's a huge dollar number. When people switch jobs, it's one of the things they look at that we offer. We have great vacation pay. We have a flexible schedule. But we're fortunate that it is an industry that brings people into the industry that love bicycling. So they tend to stay with us because of that love for cycling and the fact that we try to do a good job of making sure it's a place that people want to work. I will say the last 15 months have been tremendously, tremendously challenging from a work standpoint and employee standpoint. It's been an interesting 15 months, and hopefully we're going to move through this here in the next several months successfully.
James, are you back with us?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. So I don't know how much of my short spiel people were able to hear before I dropped out. But in essence, I grew up over here on the Eastern Shore, which you can kind of see behind me a little bit in lieu of my presentation. And my mother and a bunch of other grew up with are very into. I grew up very aware of the water environment and how birds and other wildlife really rely on that a healthy environment that works well with them. So one of my goals with Charm City is just to help bring as much of that into our city community as I can through a lot of different interconnected efforts.
Are you over?
Did any of that happen?
Yeah, we heard all of that. That was good.
Oh, great. Yes, so I'm here. I'm
picturing over there on the eastern shore, you're going to have a few million bee colonies so you can make the honey to make your mead.
That's what we would really need. But I'll settle for a few. We've been supportive. I think we're going to host some beekeeping classes at Charm City. Hopefully within the next 12 months. We've put a lot of effort into getting those going before COVID hit, and that we're going to have to kind of restart that effort.
Let me jump to another question from our group here. We've got about another, I think we have about 10 minutes. Tristan's asking, along with the solar panels as a green infrastructure, a component in your facilities, what about other forms of green infrastructure, stormwater collection? And I think all three of you, I've been involved in a couple of the moms fit outs. I know that you guys push for green stuff, and Alex, you spoke about it a bit. James, you and I have spoken in the past about sustainable components or systems within your facilities.
Absolutely.
Can each of you just take a quick minute to talk about things you've done besides solar panels?
Can I start there, Michael?
You take the lead, Alex.
I have to say that for decades now, we have really, our business has been driven by making green decisions every opportunity that presents itself. I mentioned things like low VOC paints. We designed our own countertops for our stores so that we no longer had to use countertops that were imported or involved with epoxy. Our flooring, the build out in the Westminster store was flooring that was milled in Western Maryland. We are constantly engaged in the lighting in all our stores, the most efficient lighting that makes sense economically. We've used a fully compostable bag for over 20 years in our stores for our customer purchases. We haven't given away a plastic bag in decades. We make decisions every day. Cleaning supplies, we use no harsh. I mean, this last 15 months has been a trial for me, having to buy some much harsher chemicals than we've ever bought before in our business. But we buy, if it's not going to be perfectly clean, we'll settle for a cleaner that doesn't irritate our employees' noses or throats or damage the environment. Every decision we make that might involve a green alternative, we certainly try to utilize the green alternative.
Yeah, I can second that. And then when we're doing build out, so if we can't put solar panels on the roof, we do have a solar farm out in Kingsville. It's about 6.5 acres in the BG&E territory, but it's, again, solar farm. We have a couple of stores that have green roofs. We have some stores that have bees on the roof where there's some beekeeping going on. If we can have a bioswale or a rain garden installed in the parking lot or a pollinator garden, we have that. We are going to be opening up a store in UDC on the campus there, and we'll be having a lot of pollinator plantings going on there. Same thing, we have a very high, if we won't sell a chemical or a product in the store, we won't ask our staff to use it. So the same ingredient standards that we have for health and household products, we have for our cleaning products. We banned plastic bags in 2005 and plastic water bottles in 2010. So yeah, I guess there's quite a lot. Oh, also, and then we've been purchasing renewable energy credits for American Wind since 2005. So we've been 100% renewably powered using RECs since where we don't have the solar since 2005.
James, you want to jump in there?
Yeah. So to the original, also specifically, been a real big part of our building, and it can be something that's if you look at buildings as a whole and all things, this particularly the people in this group are all familiar with how big of a deal storm really is when you have all that roof space, and non-permeable surface or minimally permeable surface. So we have started a large, or we've got a large bioswale that's really carefully structured to capture as much water as possible. And we're hoping in the long run to put in a large storage tank underneath our building, where it's sort of elevated on one end to capture the overflow, and reutilize it for later watering or perhaps cleanup stuff. But that'll require us acquiring the building, which is in the near future, I think.
All right, thank you. Tristan's got another question here that I find very interesting. Probably be our last question, but she's asking for each of you, to what degree was your green childhood key to starting up your green business? I want to hear some stories here. Alex?
My dad rode a bicycle to work in the 60s, which is crazy because I rode a bicycle to college in the 70s. I have pictures of my dad going to college in Chicago with the kids bounced on the bicycle at the and yeah, I had a pretty green childhood. I grew up with aware parents, and I'll say that I'm a vegetarian. My kids are vegetarians. My grandkids are vegetarians. My mom has almost become a vegetarian. So it's it does absolutely have an effect. We are, I think, how we grew up. Absolutely.
Allie?
I was going to say I'm probably like the odd one in the family, whereas I feel like growing up, it was not like that. Moving to Arizona, then moving to Seattle and going to college was really what kind of created the environmentalism fire in me. I didn't set out to go to college for an environmental science degree. It just kind of found me, and I just continued that way. I was always really interested in science. I love like trash and material management and what happens to it. Composting is a huge passion of mine. So then when I came back to Baltimore after living on the West Coast for like 15 years, it was like, okay, well, how do I make where my home is now into where I would like it to be, or how do I get involved locally, or kind of use those aspects. So it's probably the opposite. Whereas my family is like, what? You're selling bugs at your store? You're composting? That's so weird. What happened to you?
James? Can you hear us?
So I guess the easiest way to explain it. And, yes, I can. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you guys hear me? All right. So the easiest thing to explain it is to say, as I pan the camera back and forth, is that I'm actually at my parents' house. My wife and I have our house under construction because we have this little creature here. And it was always part of the conversation growing up. This piece of property was a cornfield when my parents bought it 35 years ago. And you can see over time, with just slow, careful effort, how much it can steer something into a place that's totally alive in terms of nature. I mean, you can hear birds and bugs and everything buzzing around me. And it was just always something that we were excited about as kids. And I think that, having parents who were aware and knew what we were excited. So my goal is to pass that on to the.
Very cool. All right, I'm just going to throw in my little bit of my childhood. I grew up in a family in Atlanta, Georgia, that had no awareness of green or sustainability at all. But when I think about my childhood, we would leave the house in the morning when the sun was coming up, go play in the woods, climb in the creek, catch salamanders, catch snakes. It was in hindsight, it was a very green childhood, although completely coincidental or unintentional. And it's hard to find that these days. We've used up our time, and it's been a pleasure to host you panelists. Thank you very much for participating, Alex, Ali, and James. I don't know, Melvin, exactly what to do to tell our 15 attendees where to go next. I think they head to the networking button on the left and then pick their next session. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, you folks can, thank you so much again, everyone, for being here, and to our panelists, thank you very much for participating. To our moderator as well, Michael. To all of the participants, if you can, there's gonna be a 5-minute break before the next breakout session. You can, in the top, you can click on the reception button in the top left, or go to the networking, where it's kind of like a speed round of being randomly matched up with someone who's also in the networking room. But remember to go into the next, click on the sessions tab on the left at 11:30 to go into session round number 2. Thank you everyone for participating. We hope to see you at the next session and throughout the conference today and tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Melvin. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Michael. Thank you, Melvin. Thank you, James, Ali.